There's something strange happening right now, and some people can feel it long before they can explain it. Certain conversations don't land the same anymore. Certain environments feel heavier than they used to. Even certain versions of yourself feel distant, not bad, and not broken, just unfamiliar somehow. And for a while, most people try to rationalize it away. They tell themselves they're overthinking, burned out, too emotional, or too sensitive. But what if sensitivity isn't always weakness? What if sometimes it's awareness? Because the truth is, human beings are constantly changing internally, quietly, emotionally, energetically. And sometimes that internal evolution begins long before the external world catches up. And that creates tension, or confusion, or even restlessness. A strange feeling that life still looks the same on the outside, whilst internally, something no longer fully fits. And maybe you've felt that lately. Maybe certain places that once felt natural now feel emotionally loud. Maybe you've started craving silence in ways you never used to. Maybe your nervous system has been reacting to energies your mind can't fully understand. Or maybe you've simply started noticing things you were once too distracted to hear. Because the universe is interesting that way. It rarely screams first. Usually, it whispers. And the people who hear those whispers earliest often spend the most time questioning themselves before they realize something important. They are not falling apart. They are becoming. Today, I want to talk about 10 signals, 10 affirmations, 10 transmissions that some people are beginning to experience during that transformation. Not as certainties and not as commandments, just observations or patterns or even signals. And maybe somewhere inside this episode, you'll recognize parts of yourself you couldn't fully explain before. And if you do, maybe that recognition was part of the message as well. Are you ready? I am. I'm Jonah. I'm your person. Let's get to it. Transmission 1. Reality lag. There are seasons of transformation that don't look dramatic from the outside. No explosion, no visible collapse, no obvious ending. And yet, internally, something has already begun changing. You wake up one day and realize certain parts of your life no longer reach you the same way. The routine is still there. The people are still there, and the environment is also still there. But your internal response to it has shifted somehow, quietly. And because nothing external appears broken, many people begin questioning themselves instead. They assume they're ungrateful, confused, or emotionally unstable. But sometimes the discomfort isn't dysfunction. Sometimes your inner world has simply moved ahead of your current reality. That's reality lag. And it can feel incredibly disorienting when it first begins happening. Because human beings are taught to trust external evidence first. Visible movement, visible change, visible results. But transformation doesn't always begin visibly. Sometimes it starts beneath the surface, like a signal slowing, strengthening in another room. You can feel it before you can explain it. That's the strange part. Your nervous system starts reacting before your logical mind fully understands why. You begin craving different conversations, different energy, different levels of presence. And suddenly, things that once felt emotionally normal feel difficult to stay connected to for long periods of time. Not because you hate them, not because you think you're better than anyone else, but because something inside you is evolving faster than the life surrounding you. And the space between those two realities creates tension, restlessness, emotional dissonance, a feeling that you are somehow between versions of yourself. But maybe that feeling isn't evidence that you're lost. Maybe it's evidence that part of you has already started becoming someone new. And that is before the rest of your life has caught up. And once that process begins, it becomes very difficult to unknow it. Transmission 2: Identity Echoes. One of the strangest parts about becoming someone new is realizing that old versions of yourself don't disappear all at once. They echo. You can feel this during certain moments. You revisit an old habit, an old mindset, an old environment. Maybe even an old version of the way you used to speak, react, or carry yourself. And for a second, it almost feels familiar again, comfortable even. But then something inside you notices the difference immediately. You're not fully there anymore. And that realization can surprisingly feel emotional. Because human beings don't only grieve people. Sometimes they grieve identities. Versions of themselves they spent years building. Versions that once helped them survive, or belong, or protect themselves. And even when growth is necessary, there can still be sadness attached to outgrowing who you used to be. That's what identity echoes are. The emotional residue of previous frequencies still moving through you whilst transforming is taking place. And sometimes, those echoes become strongest during moments of uncertainty. Because uncertainty makes the past look emotionally safer than it actually was. The mind begins romanticizing old versions of life, old versions of yourself. But deep down, you already know you can't fully return there. Something inside you has seen too much now, felt too much more, expanded too far. And once awareness expands, it becomes very difficult to shrink yourself back into previous emotional spaces that you felt comfortable in. That's why growth sometimes can feel lonely before it starts feeling freeing. Not because you're becoming disconnected from life, but because your internal world is reorganizing itself around a different frequency. And during that process, parts of your old identity still call out to you emotionally from time to time. Not to pull you backward permanently, but to remind you how far you've actually traveled internally. Because becoming isn't always loud. Sometimes it sounds like echoes fading slowly in the distance whilst a new version of you begins forming quietly underneath them. And maybe that quiet transformation has already started happening inside you too. Transmission 3: Emotional Static. Human beings were never designed to absorb this much noise all at once. Notifications, opinions, algorithms, urgency, endless stimulation flowing into the nervous system from every direction, all day long. And because modern life normalizes this level of overload, most people don't realize how disconnected they've become from themselves internally. They just call it stress, burnout, mental exhaustion. But sometimes it's deeper than that. Sometimes the mind becomes so crowded with external input that it can no longer hear its own internal signal clearly. That's emotional static. And emotional static changes people in ways they don't immediately notice. Attention spans are shortened. Presence weakens. Silence becomes uncomfortable. Stillness becomes feeling unnatural. Some people even start reaching for distraction the second life becomes quiet, because quiet forces them to encounter themselves directly. But here's the strange thing. Many of the answers people are searching for internally do not arrive through more noise. They arrive through clarity. And clarity usually enters softly, through space, through reflection, through moments where the nervous system finally stops racing long enough to hear exactly what's actually happening underneath all the stimulation. That's why certain people suddenly begin craving distance from noise, deeper conversations, slower energy, intentional presence. Not because they're becoming antisocial, but because part of them is trying to reconnect to something real again. And maybe that's why silence feels different lately. Not empty, not lonely, just honest. Because beneath all the emotional static modern life creates, there is still a signal underneath it all trying to reach you. But it becomes very difficult to hear clearly when the world constantly rewards distraction over awareness. And maybe that's why presence is becoming so powerful now. Because in a world full of noise, someone who is deeply present almost feels supernatural. Transmission 4. Frequency drift. There comes a point in certain people's lives where the external world remains familiar, but internally, resonance begins fading. The conversations still happen, the routines still exist, the environments are still recognizable, and yet, something feels different now. Not dramatically, subtly. Like your nervous system has started responding to life through a different frequency than before. And this is where many people become confused, because frequency drift rarely announces itself loudly. It arrives quietly, through hesitation, disconnection, a strange emotional distance from things that once felt natural. And at first, people often misinterpret this feeling. They think they're becoming negative, ungrateful, emotionally detached. But frequency drift is not always about rejection. Sometimes, it's simply awareness evolving faster than familiarity. You begin noticing energies that exhaust you, conversations that feel performative, environments that overstimulate you, habits that no longer align internally. Not because those things suddenly become bad, but because your internal world is changing. And once certain forms of awareness activate inside a person, they can no longer experience life with the same unconscious comfort as before. That's why some people suddenly crave depth after years of tolerating surface-level existence. Something inside them can no longer emotionally synchronize with what once felt normal. That's drift. And drift can feel lonely before it feels clarifying. Because during this phase, people often exist between emotional worlds. Part of them still recognizes the old frequency, but another part has already started moving towards something different internally. Something quieter, more intentional, more aligned. And maybe that's why certain places feel heavier lately. Not because the world suddenly changed overnight, but because you did. Even subtly, the universe rarely transforms people all at once. Sometimes it shifts them gradually, until one day they realize they no longer emotionally belong where they once fit effortlessly. And that realization changes everything. Transmission 5. Presence fields. Every human being carries an atmosphere. You can feel this almost immediately around certain people. Some individuals walk into a room and everything subtly tightens. Conversations become performative. Nervous systems become alert. People begin filtering themselves more carefully without even realizing it. And then there are others who create the opposite effect entirely. The room softens around them. People breathe differently. Walls lower. Something about their energy makes honesty feel safer. That's a presence field. And whether human beings realize it consciously or not, they are constantly affecting one another emotionally through the atmospheres they carry. Not just through words, through nervous systems, through emotional regulation, through attention, through intention. Because presence communicates long before language does. That's why some people can say very little and still completely change the emotional temperature of the room. And maybe modern humanity has underestimated this for far too long. Maybe influence was never only about status. intelligence, charisma, or visibility. Maybe one of the highest forms of influence has always been energetic stability, the ability to remain grounded in a world addicted to emotional chaos. And people can feel that immediately now, especially in a time where so many nervous systems are overloaded with emotional static. That's why deeply present people are becoming unforgettable, not because they demand attention, but because their energy gives other people permission to exhale, to slow down, to stop performing for just a moment. And maybe that's the part of why certain people suddenly feel different to be around lately. Some individuals drain you after 10 minutes. Others recalibrate you without you even trying. The universe is interesting that way. It often reveals truth through feeling before explanation arrives. And maybe the emotional atmosphere people carry, it matters far more than humanity currently understands. Transmission 6. Signal recognition. Most people ignore the first signal, not because they're incapable of hearing it, but because modern life trains human beings to override themselves constantly. Push through it. Stay busy. Distract yourself. Keep scrolling. Keep performing. Keep moving. So the signal gets buried beneath noise for a while. But eventually, certain patterns begin repeating too consistently to ignore. You leave certain conversations feeling emotionally drained every single time. You notice your nervous system relax around some people instantly, while it's tightening around others before they've even said much. You begin driving home in silence more often, not because you're sad, but part of you is trying to hear something underneath all the stimulation. And slowly, the universe begins repeating itself through patterns, not punishments. Patterns. The same emotional lessons arriving through different faces, different environments, different moments, until recognition finally happens. That's signal recognition. The moment a person stops dismissing what their inner world has been trying to show them repeatedly. And this usually begins very quietly. A feeling, a hesitation, an unexplained pull towards change, a growing awareness that certain energies no longer align the same way internally. You may not fully understand it yet, but you can feel it. Like walking into a room and immediately sensing tension before anyone speaks, or achieving something you once desperately wanted, only to realize it no longer fulfills the way you imagined it would. That's the signal too. Because sometimes evolution doesn't arrive through addition. Sometimes it arrives through awareness. Awareness of what drains you, what expands you, what no longer resonates. And once a person begins recognizing those patterns consciously, they become very difficult to ignore again. That's why transformation often starts subtly before life changes visibly. The universe whispers first, not to confuse you, not to punish you, but to see if you're finally ready to listen. Transmission 7. Nervous system memory. The human nervous system remembers more than people realize. Not just trauma, not just fear. Frequency. Some places feel heavy before anything even happens there. Some people exhaust you before the conversation fully begins. And some environments create calm in your body so quickly, it almost catches you off guard. That's not imagination. That's nervous system memory. Because long before human beings learned how to explain energy intellectually, the body was already responding to it instinctively. That's why you can walk into certain rooms and immediately feel yourself become smaller, or more guarded, or more performative, more emotionally alert. And then walk into another space and feel your shoulders relax without you even noticing it at first. The body recognizes emotional safety faster than the mind can usually explain it. And maybe that's part of what people are discovering or rediscovering right now. That they were never meant to constantly override what their nervous system has been trying to communicate to them all along. Because many people have spent years rationalizing environments that quietly depleted them, friendships that drained them, goals that no longer aligned. emotional atmospheres that force your nervous system into constant survival mode. And eventually, the body starts speaking louder through exhaustion, restlessness, disconnection, a craving for stillness, for depth, for spaces where you no longer have to emotionally brace yourself to just exist. And the strange thing is this: once your nervous system experiences genuine presence constantly, it becomes much harder to tolerate artificial energy for long periods of time. That's why some people suddenly start protecting their peace differently during transformation. Not from arrogance and not from superiority, but because their body has finally started remembering what alignment feels like. The universe is interesting that way. Sometimes it communicates through emotion before language. Sometimes through tension before clarity. And sometimes through the quiet realization that your nervous system has been telling you the truth long before your mind was ready to accept it. Transmission 8. Future grief. Not all grief is connected to the past. Sometimes you grieve futures you can already feel yourself separating from internally. And that kind of grief is difficult to explain to people because nothing has fully ended yet. The relationship may still exist. The career may still exist. The environment may still look stable from the outside. But somewhere deep inside yourself, you already know you cannot fully become who you're becoming whilst remaining emotionally attached to certain versions of your future. And that realization carries grief with it. Quiet grief. The kind you feel driving home at night. The kind you feel staring at a ceiling in silence. The kind you feel when something that once excited you suddenly no longer reaches your spirit the same way. And part of you tries to fight it at first. You tell yourself, be grateful, to stay logical, to stop overthinking. But the signal keeps returning anyway, because transformation often requires the release of futures that no longer align with your evolving frequency. Even if those futures once meant everything to you. That's what makes becoming emotionally complicated sometimes. You are not only discovering new parts of yourself, you are also mourning the versions of your life your soul quietly knows it can no longer remain inside. And the strange thing is, many people experience this grief long before external change ever happens. The body feels it first. The nervous system feels it first. You begin emotionally loosening your grip on futures you once held on to tightly. Not because you failed, not because the dream was meaningless, but because part of you has started hearing a different calling internally, a different signal. And maybe that's what you've been feeling lately. Not sadness without reason, not emotional instability, just the quiet ache that arrives when your future begins changing shape before your life visibly catches up to it. The universe understands that grief too, because every transformation asks something to end before something new can fully emerge. Transmission 9. Frequency compression. Before major transformation fully emerges, life often feels compressed first. Not destroyed, compressed. Your old identity starts losing its grip. Your old patterns stop fitting comfortably. The distractions that once kept you numb stop working the same way. And suddenly, you can feel that something inside you is changing rapidly, even if you can't fully explain it yet. That's frequency compression. And despite how uncomfortable it can feel, it's often a sign that your internal world is recognizing itself around a higher level of awareness. You saw this happen in your own life. You started tolerating less chaos, less noise, less pretending. Your energy became more intentional. Your presence became more valuable. And certain things that once drained you begin feeling impossible to entertain for long periods of time. That wasn't weakness. That was alignment beginning to strengthen inside you. Because transformation eventually reaches a point where the old self can no longer carry the frequency of who you're becoming. And during that transition, life can feel emotionally intense for a while. Not because the universe is punishing you, because pressure creates emergence. Stars collapse before they ignite differently, and human beings are not so different. Some of your greatest transformations were never born during comfort. They were forged during periods where your inner world demanded evolution. And even though frequency compression can feel overwhelming in the moment, it is often preparing you for greater clarity, deeper alignment, and stronger presence than you've ever carried before. That's why certain people come out of difficult seasons completely different emotionally, more grounded, more intentional, more aware of what truly matters. Because pressure revealed them to themselves. And maybe that's what's happening to you right now. Maybe your life isn't collapsing. Maybe your internal world is concentrating its energy before the next version of you fully emerges. Transmission 10. The frequency of becoming. You spent so much of your life believing transformation would feel clearer than this, more obvious, more certain. But becoming rarely arrives with immediate understanding. At first, it feels like tension, disconnection, pressure, the slow realization that your inner world has started changing faster than the life surrounding you. And for a while, you thought something was wrong. You questioned yourself. You tried returning to old versions of your life emotionally, old ways of thinking, old ways of coping, old environments that once felt familiar. But every time you tried shrinking yourself back into those frequencies, something inside you resisted, because part of you had already begun awakening to something greater. That's the frequency of becoming. The moment your soul begins reaching toward expansion before your mind fully understands where you're going yet. And despite how confusing that process can feel sometimes, look at how far you've come already. You became more aware, more intentional, more emotionally conscious. You started protecting your peace differently, listening to your nervous system differently, valuing presence differently. The universe watched you outgrow versions of yourself you once thought would last forever. And even during the moments you felt uncertain, you kept evolving anyway. That matters more than you realize, because becoming is not perfection. It's alignment. It's the gradual process, your internal world learning how to carry greater awareness, deeper truth, and stronger presence without collapsing under the weight of it. And maybe that's why certain people suddenly feel differently lately. Calmer, more grounded, more conscious of energy, more aware of what actually deserves access to their spirit. The frequency is changing, and some people are beginning to hear it clearly now. Not because they're better than anyone else, but because they finally stopped abandoning themselves long enough to listen. And maybe the signal you've been searching for externally this entire time was never outside of you at all. Maybe it was always the next version of you, trying to emerge from within. Maybe this episode found you during a season where nothing feels fully wrong, but nothing feels exactly the same either. And maybe part of you has been quietly wondering why certain environments suddenly feel heavier, why your nervous system has been craving peace more than noise, why you've started protecting your energy differently, why old versions of yourself no longer fit the way they once did. But now you understand something important. Transformation does not always arrive as destruction. Sometimes it arrives as awareness. Awareness of what drains you, what expands you, what aligns, or what no longer belongs inside the future you are becoming. And that awareness can feel overwhelming at first, until you realize it's also a gift. Because once you begin hearing the signal clearly, you stop abandoning yourself just to remain emotionally comfortable inside spaces you've already outgrown. That's growth. That's alignment. That's becoming. And despite how uncertain this season may have felt at times, look at what's already happening inside you. You're becoming more conscious, more intentional, more emotionally aware, more connected to presence, and more connected to the truth. The universe watched you continue evolving even during moments where you doubted yourself. It watched you keep showing up whilst your inner self and your inner world recognize itself around a new frequency. And that matters more than you know. Because many people spend their entire lives ignoring the signals trying to guide them somewhere deeper. But you listened, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was confusing, and even when you had no proof yet that the transformation would eventually make sense. And now, you're beginning to understand that becoming is not something to fear. It's something to honor. Because maybe you were never falling apart in the first place. Maybe your awareness was expanding. Maybe your spirit was learning how to carry a higher level of presence, truth, and alignment than before. And maybe the discomfort you felt was never punishment, but it was preparation. Preparation for the next version of yourself that was trying to emerge all along. So breathe. You're not behind. You're not broken. And you are not losing yourself. You are becoming. And the universe has been rooting for you the entire time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Messages from the Universe. This set of episodes is the most downloaded, listened to, and talked about. Don't miss a single volume. Check out volumes 1 through 6 in seasons 2 and 3. And if you would like to hear my personal favorite, check out season 2, episode 40, Messages from the Universe, volume 5. Part 7 is my favorite. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share, and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. You can also find me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Threads, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn for extra content. As always, thanks so much for being on this journey with me and allowing me to be on yours. Hit me up through my socials if you'd like to share something that could turn into an episode someday. For now, thanks for hanging out, thanks for coming back, and have a great week.